There are three levels. I think at the mainstream level, I think food and groceries will still be a staple that everybody needs. But then I think in the luxury market, I think clearly we all worry that purchasing power and people's incomes and revenues might be affected because of this trade war. So I think maybe in the luxury market there's some concern. But then down at the mainstream level, I don't think will be much impacted. But like I said, we import from Australia and New Zealand, from countries in the vicinity, from China, for example, even from Japan. And then I think there's no tariffs. I think it's only America versus the world, and everybody else is business as usual, and everybody else is tariff-free. I think you'll be all right.
I think you're one of very few happy voices that we've interviewed over the last 2 weeks or so. And you actually made the decision earlier this year, in fact, acquiring this food business in Singapore. So this is really part of your effort to streamline your operations in Malaysia and Singapore. Would you go for more moves like that? Because I would imagine it gives you more pricing power and it can actually reduce cost down the road.
You're right, Sherry. Actually, it's a homecoming. When we purchased the giant Mercator and Cold Storage Group in Malaysia from DFI, the Jardine Group of UK, we were also interested to do the Singapore purchase, but they came in later. So actually, it's actually a homecoming. Now we're actually merging back the supermarket operations of Malaysia and Singapore, and basically the teams are all the same. The same people in Malaysia, the same people in Singapore are actually still managing the business. So it's business as usual, Sherry. I think going forward, the impact of the tariffs will be more on the digital industry, the cyber industry, computers and the like, but not in food and groceries. Coming back to your other part of the question, yes, we are interested to expand, but growth for growth's sake is not our philosophy. I think when we grow and we add new stores, it'll be on a rational basis. It'll be at the right location to serve the right customer with the right produce. That's our philosophy in Macrovalue, as well as in Cold Storage Singapore.
Andrew, we are seeing that ties between Malaysia and China are deepening, especially on the back of President Xi Jinping's visit to your country. And there are some who believe that this will open markets for Malaysia to China, China to Malaysia. Is there a concern that we might see more competition coming into Malaysia from, say, Chinese players that might want to perhaps take a slice out of Macrovalue's pie, for instance? How competitive is the business right now in Malaysia, and could it get more competitive if we start to see more players coming in to perhaps try at least, and if it's a try to give you a run for your money?
Well, I think we are always concerned about potential competitors, JP, but I think we are confident in our own locality, in our own countries. We'll be able to be competitive regardless of whoever comes into our market. We heard, for example, in Malaysia, Lulu, which is a very large supermarket in the Middle East, are now closing down permanently because they couldn't compete in our Malaysian circumstances. And I think the same is for Singapore. I think the three big players in Singapore, NTUC FairPrice, Cold Storage, Sheng Siong, I think we have got a very firm hold on the food and grocery business here. And I think clearly Singaporeans are very familiar with these three names and these three brands. So I think clearly we will not be unduly concerned with competitors from China.
Andrew, I want to ask you a very Singapore-focused and related question, and this has to do with food security. As you well know, I think there's a longer-term plan for Singapore to be able to produce at least, I think, a third of the food that it needs, right? So we've seen a boom in, all kinds of gardening on rooftops, etc. Has it scaled enough to the point where you're able to buy from some of these growers, or is it still, are these sort of still not industrial scale, more like small lot farmers?
I think, Martin, the organic farming or the high-tech farming that's going on in Singapore is targeted to the high-value goods, like, for example, mushrooms. for example. But then I think mushrooms form a very small part of our supermarket list of things to buy. So I think you still need to have our farms in Cameron Highlands. You still need to have the fishermen in Kuala Kurau in Perak. You still need the durians from Balik Pulau in Penang, for example. So it's very difficult to replace that. So I think what Singapore is doing is very good. And you have all these high-tech farms in high-value produce. For example, mushrooms.
Yeah.
I keep on mentioning mushrooms because that's value add.
Yeah. Okay.